Did you know that 1 out of every 2 men and 1 out of every 3 women will develop cancer during their lifetime? A figure that can be terrifying. But what if I told you it's a molecule many people use to improve their gym performance? Creatine, an unexpected ally? Or could it be, as some fear, a hidden enemy that fuels the disease? Let's clear up the doubts. Creatine has anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and immunomodulatory effects that I'm sure you don't know about. They're not well known. Cancer continues to be, on the other hand, the second leading cause of death in the world. I wish we had the necessary tools to stop it. The stigma and pain associated with the disease make us constantly focus on what we can do, both as individuals and as a society, to prevent it. One of the most powerful protective barriers, as you already know, is nutrition. The study of potential nutritional interventions that protect against neoplastic processes. Well, it's an exciting and constantly developing field. In this sense, creatine is an organic acid naturally produced in your body from arginine, methionine, and glycine, and it plays a crucial role in providing energy to your cells. You know it from fitness, the gym, its energy boost in explosive sports, performance, and strength gains. In fact, we've discussed it in several previous videos, but today the question is much bigger, much more vital. Does this natural molecule that your own body produces and that millions supplement bring us closer to or further from cancer? Think about it carefully. It's an important question, and science seems divided. Recent studies suggest a protective role of creatine in cancer. But be careful, there are also some studies, yes, small and sporadic, that warn about the possibility that creatine increases the energy flow to tumor cells, that it gives energy to cancer, gasoline to the enemy, and even some animal models show promoting effects on invasion and metastasis in certain tumors such as pancreas, colon, or breast. Fortunately, this has not been shown in humans. So, in today's video, we'll clear up the doubts. Does taking more creatine bring me closer to or further from cancer? And we're going to support ourselves. In a recent study, the first thing you need to remember is that creatine does not equal supplements. I'm not only talking about the protein powder you consume at the gym. You get creatine from your diet, mainly from meat and fish. But you also synthesize creatine from amino acids in your own body about 2 grams a day, which is the same amount you excrete and eliminate. Apart from this, some people take creatine supplements to recharge their muscle stores. But the question you have to answer today, or that we have, is, would taking more creatine protect me from cancer? Let's look at the results of this new study. And this is where it gets interesting. This is the study, and it shows the dietary intake of creatine. From 25,879 individuals over 20 years old in the time period between 2007 and 2018. The data is taken from one of the largest nutritional databases in the world, National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. The objective of the study is precisely to answer the previous question and, to the author's surprise, the statistical analysis showed a negative and linear association between cancer and dietary creatine intake. Translated, more dietary creatine, less cancer. How can this be? Does creatine help with depression, dementia, performance, sarcopenia, and now also cancer? This study and others suggest that it seems to be the case. Specifically, what they found was that for each standard deviation in creatine intake, there was a 5% lower risk of cancer. This relationship was more pronounced in the age group over 52 years old, where for every 0.09 additional grams of creatine, there was a 14% reduction in risk. Another interesting fact is that the association was stronger in men and in participants who were overweight. If we only looked at the statistics, we might understand that those who benefit the most from creatine are overweight men over 50. But let's not just stick to the statistics, because sometimes they can be misleading. What pathophysiological mechanisms could explain these curious findings? What are creatine's superpowers against cancer? Oncogenesis, the development of cancer, requires perverse mechanisms such as immune evasion, that your immune system is inefficient at defending you. An excess of oxidative stress not counterbalanced by antioxidants and sustained chronic inflammation over time. I repeat, it needs your immune system to be asleep, it needs to oxidize and damage your cells, and it loves chronic inflammation. In all these processes, creatine plays a beneficial role. Let's examine each effect individually, starting with the anti-inflammatory impact. Creatine blocks the interaction between the interferon gamma receptor, a pro-inflammatory cytokine, and the Janus kinase 2 protein, and this allows the suppression of pro-inflammatory gene expression. That's why creatine is one of the few known animal-derived nutrients that has a clear anti-inflammatory effect. If you notice, we always talk about plant-based nutrients when discussing anti-inflammatory effects, especially polyphenols. Immune enhancement. This review suggests that creatine could suppress tumor growth by boosting the anti-tumor activity of cluster of differentiation 8 T cells. Remember that cancer is not killed only with aggressive chemotherapy, which is what many people think, but this is completely false. Chemotherapy is obviously a treatment for cancer, but we also kill cancer ourselves with our immune system as long as it is capable. In fact, much of the new cancer therapy is moving in this direction. Continuing with its effects on the immune system, it helps generate more regulatory T cells and T helper 2 cells, inhibiting excessive activation of macrophages and increasing the secretion of anti-inflammatory cytokines. Inflammation, as you know, is the perfect breeding ground for cancer. Cancer thrives in an inflammatory microenvironment. On the other hand, higher creatine deposits and greater intake. It's usually directly related to greater and more functional muscle mass, which also protects us from cancer. For those already diagnosed with cancer, you may wonder if it offers benefits. Let's consider this. Cancer literally eats away at muscle, generating a complex metabolic syndrome that's hard to treat called cancer cachexia. Here, the loss of lean mass is brutally accelerated by different mechanisms. In this situation, this study, for example, shows that creatine could offer protection against cancer-associated cachexia. And since it's so hard to stop, any contributing intervention is more than welcome. Believe me. Creatine would not only be useful on its own, but it could also have a synergistic effect with cancer treatments such as immunotherapies. Specifically, in this study, it is shown that anti-programmed cell death protein 1, programmed death ligand 1 immunotherapy is synergistic with creatine, which opens the door to an adjuvant use in cancer immunotherapy. Will immunotherapy patients receive their creatine supplement in the future? We'll see, but as always, scientific evidence has its limitations. Pay attention. It's important to mention all details, including the fine print, to avoid sensationalism and maintain honesty in the message. This study is a snapshot, not a movie. Like all epidemiological studies, the findings are an association without being able to establish a cause and effect relationship between creatine and cancer. Not in one direction or the other. Be careful. Just because there's always a fire department near a fire doesn't mean that firefighters are arsonists. Creatine intake is associated with higher consumption of meat and fish, and this is usually linked to a higher socioeconomic level. A protective factor against most diseases, including cancer. To my knowledge, the results were not adjusted for economic capacity. Usually, higher consumption of meat and fish also indicates a less processed diet and therefore better quality. Same point as before. The validity of intake data collected in databases like National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey is questionable. Don't trust nutritional surveys too much and you'll understand why. Do you remember what you ate 3 days ago? I don't. People with cancer sometimes avoid red meat, which is the main source of creatine in this study. This could be due to health recommendations or personal beliefs and may be an example of reverse causality. Could it be that cancer leads to eating less creatine and not the other way around? There may also be differences between reported and actual creatine amounts, as non-dietary sources like supplements were not included. More and more people, are taking creatine supplements outside of a sports or fitness context. Don't underestimate this factor. And finally, the study doesn't analyze the role of other nutrients like vitamin D or omega-3s, which are found in seafood and fish and have protective effects against cancer. We might attribute to creatine what could be explained by other nutrients. So, does taking more creatine bring me closer to or further from cancer? Although science is still investigating, the most recent data suggests that a higher intake of creatine, especially dietary creatine through a diet rich in unprocessed foods, is associated with a lower risk of cancer. It is a natural molecule, safe for most people and safe at all ages, also with a therapeutic potential that we are just beginning to scratch the surface of. And yes, it seems that it could also offer a clear advantage in the fight against this terrible disease. What do you think? Do you take creatine? What did you think of this information? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm interested in your opinion. If this video provided value, new perspective, or made you think, please subscribe, like, and share the channel to support the content. Because you could be helping someone make better decisions for their health with just one click. The links to the mentioned studies are in the description for further research if desired. What other controversial nutrition or health topic would you like me to investigate?